The thing with ABBA that is mind-boggling is the ability to come up with one after the other this, such high quality of stuff. Lots of songwriters have maybe 4 or 5 great sing-along tracks, but they don't consistently keep coming up with them. But ABBA did. Number ones consistently in maybe 10 territories, and albums number ones and top 5s consistently round the world. I mean, come on, Enough said about that. That's their high points. I mean, that says everything really to me.
And we move now across into Sweden, the largest of the Scandinavian countries. And although we're looking at streets, it's a country full of mountains, lakes and forests. And of course, it's full of blonde Vikings. And this is one of the reasons why it's good for pictures. These are the Abba group, born Frida, Anna, who's just beside her with the long blonde hair, and Benny. If you can work that out, that's why they're called Abba, because in fact it's Benny born Annie Fried and Anna. They made their first record in 1972, and if all the judges were men, which they're not, I'm sure this group would get a lot of votes. You'll see why in a minute. Their song is called, oh, and it's Napoleon. Napoleon, no wonder their song is called Waterloo. This is Sven Olaf Waldorf, who's really entered into the spirit of it all, dressed as Napoleon, waiting for Waterloo by Abba for Sweden. Watch this one.
Yeah. My heart at Waterloo, Napoleon did surrender.
Waterloo was, of course, the Eurovision breakthrough for Abba. It was quite a calculated attempt. They took Sandy Shaw's 1967 Eurovision Song Contest winner, Puppet on a String, and they basically updated all the elements of that. They got the sort of marching beat, that bouncy marching beat that they perfected, and then the chirpy vocals to go along with it, which made sure that it just crossed all national boundaries, and there was something in it for everyone.
I think rhythmically in the chorus it's quite a jaunty bounce along, and bounce along songs tend to be ones that people really get off on, because it naturally makes you want to do something to it, and it also contains, like an archetypal ABBA hook, with the stabbing, which is very similar to sort of the Dancing Queen idea, and it's that sort of sound that a lot of people, when they hear a record and it's got that in it, will associate that with ABBA.
It won the Eurovision as well. But the other thing about it, I think, that was quite surprising was that it sounded a little bit like ELO. There was good production pop values in it already. The vocals were beautifully recorded. Here was a Swedish band singing quite clearly in English. It wasn't a problem. They didn't have heavy accents. And so, in an industry that was very much driven by the English language, they fitted right in.
And now it seems my only chance is giving up the fight.
Waterloo was their big song. That's sort of what broke them into the market, really. And I think it's kind of funny that it's a political song for ABBA, which is a weird way to break into the pop world. And it's such an up-singy song with, these two pretty girls standing there singing about, Napoleon and comparing that to their love life. I just think that's priceless. But it shows that they're a little bit tongue-in-cheek.
Waterloo really is a song that to me seems to pull out all the stops as far as making a very catchy, hooky pop song. That they took from sort of the glam rock kind of scene at the time and made those sort of pedaling guitar kind of references, and again the saxophone played a part in there, and just huge catchy melodies. There's even like a reference to sort of some, I think it might be like a Beethoven kind of piano-y, kind of very dramatic, and of course the vocal layering ever present.
They produced an amazing song which had some great breaks in their saxophone, great instrument, sounded amazing. Visually, to win Eurovision, they wore some amazing clothes, which I don't think anyone else would dream up in a month of Sundays. So I think they married together a whole bunch of things designed to win the competition, and I think they just outshone everyone else that day.
ABBA's costumes are legendary, and the way they dressed is a source of much hilarity in this 21st century. But of course, in the 70s, it didn't seem as ridiculous as it does now. Perhaps they were still flamboyant, they were still loud. They came along just after the sort of glam rock era had happened and blossomed, and they moved on from that through the disco period. So there's some very flamboyant clothes.
Performance. Sweden, they've never won it, but they've surely got to be up amongst the reckoning with that one. It's certainly gone down well here inside the Dome in Brighton.
I remember thinking at the time, wow, that's a really good single, but I bet they can't come up with something else. And that's what everybody was saying. And then they did. And then they did again, and they did again, and they did again, and they did again, and did again.
Well, I don't think there's really a prescription. You have to be very, very careful so that you don't copy the hit before. Like, say, we would have copied Waterloo, and then we would have been finished in 1 or 2 years.
That's very, very American, I think. There's a lot of groups or artists copying their first hit, knowing that they're following, I mean, the spin-off, the wave coming after that will still sell their record, whatever it is. So they try to make it as similar as, but I think that's very dangerous, because
you have to change all the time.
I think they played pretty safely on a lot of the earlier stuff that they came out with, very sort of reminiscent of the late 50s, early 60s rock and roll kind of movement, simple melodies and great use of saxophone, you know, very, very, very poppy.
The content, I think sometimes in some of the earlier songs was a little confused, because I think they were probably struggling with the poetical side of English, but certainly the diction side of English was quite clear. So that's the whole point about early ABBA, is it sounded good. And I think throughout their whole career, I mean, they always sounded good. The quality of, you know, the recording, of this, the way the lyrics scanned, the harmonies of the girls, everything about them sounded good.
I've been cheated by you since I drove away. So I made up my mind, it must come to an end. Get me now, will I ever learn? I don't know how.
Mamma Mia is perhaps the first sighting of what you might call ABBA genius. Starts with that little piano and xylophone intro, like it's going to be another Eurovision hit.
Mamma Mia, here I go again. My, how can I resist you?
What makes Mamma Mia work successfully is there's nothing really complex going on there. It's quite a simplistic format. You know, you've got a 4/4 rhythm all the way through the track. You've got a very interesting switch between twin harmony lead guitars and then back to the vocals, and you've got that hypnotic kind of leitmotif on the piano that brings the whole song in, and it really punches in as soon as the song begins, and it's just perfect pop.
It's very dramatic, and it actually has quite strong guitar riffs in it, which I think brings them to a totally different stage again. It's still got that pop vibe to it, but the guitars are quite heavy in it for a pop act, I think, and especially from a pop act in like 1975 or whenever it was that they released at Mamma Mia.
The first thing that they do, which is really interesting, is they take a D major chord and then they add a fifth to it, a sharp 5, which augments it. So the sharp 5, so D major, add the sharp 5, it then becomes an augmented chord, which is quite unusual in pop. but not unusual for ABBA.
What they did a lot, which is quite unusual, ABBA, actually, musically, choruses, they did this thing quite a lot where the music just literally drops away and you've just got these sort of rhythmic figures with the vocal, you know, Mamma Mia, here I go, you know, which is actually quite unusual. I can't think of that many other bands which build a hook with no music in the chorus, you know, that's something quite unique to ABBA.
I think SOS was the first time I became aware of their semi-classical influence. And the song has got like a half-time verse feel, and then, you know, typical of ABBA goes into the big chorus. But I think I'm correct in saying this was Benny's main influence here. And that was one of the things that they would take and put into the songs right through their career. Not every time, but, you know, every 3 or 4 singles, it would be there again.
Perfectly formed ABBA gem. It's slightly restrained arrangements in many ways, but that allows Agnetha's voice to add quite a passionate vocal to it. But what's interesting also is that the piano and the synthesizer are used to carry lines in the song that are quite often really done by the voices. But this time around they're using all the instruments along with the voices, so the voices and the instruments become intertwined in many ways.
It's a lot more acoustic. It started with a nice acoustic guitar going in, whereas their other stuff was a lot sort of more poppy, straight in your face, lots of keyboards and lots of, you know, jiggling around in that respect, and the guitars were a lot harder, and then they've sort of stepped back away from that and they've stripped it down for SOS. Like, it is a very sort of basic sound, and the like chord progression in that is very straightforward and very basic, yet the melody really takes on a real ride in that song.
So when you're near me, darling, can't you hear me? SOS.
I think SOS is again great because it sort of starts off as a ballad, and through a bit of classical, I guess, Bach induced a link between the ballad and the rock song, and then you're into a really powerful chorus. It's SOS is great. You've got kind of 3 musical styles all glued in together there, and I think it works great.
In their later songs, there was depth of material. Once they were actually talking about personal experiences, which we all are aware of, breakups and marriages and what was written about, etc., etc. Those songs are actually quite poignant. But early on in their career, it was really a songwriting ability more than a depth of material. A musical ability and a musical depth, yes, but depth of material was yet to come, really, I think.
Can you hear the drums, Fernando? I remember long ago another starry night like this. In the firelight, Fernando, you were humming to yourself and softly strumming your guitar. I could hear the distant drums and sounds of bugle calls were coming from afar. They were close now, Fernando.
Fernando is a conscious effort to move away temporarily, albeit, from the ABBA ring style, the glorious harmonies. This was an attempt to cool it down, to write more of a ballad. It had in fact been a song on one of Frida's solo albums, but they revamped it, particularly lyrically, where they turned it from being a rather plain boy meets girl story. And now suddenly they're a bunch of Mexican revolutionaries reminiscing over their youth.
Suddenly you get this other influence, which is the Spanish gypsy type of influence that they brought into their material. Once again, though, as always with Abba, you have the huge chorus. So, you know, it starts with this sort of slightly romantic, Spanishy sort of Mediterranean gypsy. And then, but once it hits the chorus, big acoustic guitars, you know, and it's definitely Abba.
There was something in the air that night, the stars were bright, Fernando. They were shining there for you and me, for liberty, Fernando. Though we never thought that we could lose, there's no regret. If I could do the same again, I would, my friend Fernando.
They did quite a few sort of Latin American Spanish themed songs. No one's quite sure why. It just seems that Bjorn and Benny had had a couple of good holidays in Spain and Mexico and liked to write stories inspired by these places. More than once they went on holiday, a sort of working holiday together when they needed to write new material, and came back with songs like that, songs like Hasta Mañana. But Fernando obviously was most successful and was a massive #1 hit.
The atmosphere in Fernando has been made very, very concurrent with the lyrics. It sort of gives a very sort of reminiscent, haunting feel. Again, sort of brave for a single, you know, you have these kind of drawn-out verses and with that military rhythm running throughout them, you know, which, you know, I don't know whether we'd seen that up to this point before.
One of the things that creates the atmosphere in a song is the contrast between the introduction, which again is quite strident, almost bombastic, and then it drops right down to basically this very quiet verse. So you've almost, the verse in itself builds attention because it's just so down, and then of course you come up into this sing-along chorus, you know. But I think the introduction plays a big part in setting the tone of this song, actually. And
it's very very well orchestrated on the on the record. There's a lot of stuff going on there, lots of flutes, kind of that kind of movement. I mean, not more complicated than that. And then you've got the kind of melody at the beginning. And then when we get into the verse, you've got something that's a little more unusual, which is the rolling snare, which is almost like a kind of a military kind of, you know, which is quite unusual for a ballad-style song, really.
But it's such a sad song, because it's, again, I guess kind of a war theme. It's like, can you hear the drums, Fernando? They're standing there with their guns. Like, it is quite full-on when you listen to it, but it's meant to be this lovely song about how great Fernando is, and it's like, do you hear the drums, Fernando? It's kind of scary and foreboding, but you don't think of it like that because it's Abba. All-time party song, all-time favourite. I think girls want to be the dancing queen when they're out and about, and it just epitomises it. It describes a girl's perfect night out.
Getting in the swing, you come to look for a king.
I don't think I've ever been in a room filled with girls at a party where the dance floor hasn't become full instantly as soon as the big piano gliss at the beginning and the big choral vocals coming in there. It's instant. You want to be on the dance floor when Dancing Queen's on.
And when you get the chance,
you know, it will just be one of those songs that will always be loved. Will always, people will always know. It's got the most famous glissando in the world in it. You know, the lead into the song, and it's just one of those classic songs. One of those songs that everybody will wish they would have written.
Bjorn and Benny were looking for a more disco sound that they'd been hearing in America, and Dancing Queen is a bit more laid back than the kind of disco they were listening to, but it still works.
Dancing Queen's weird, set at that tempo of 102 BPM. It's down there somewhere. It's not the classic 120 where a lot of people kind of use as a starting point for a song, it seems. I think it's great. It's the vocal range goes from the very bottom of the girl's vocal range right to the top. The piano hook is a key to it as well. Da-dun, da-dun, da-dun. It's just there, and that's a great thing about Abba. They just, when you need the right hook, if it's a lyrical hook, something you can sing along to, or a musical hook, there's always something in a song that you can relate to, and it kind of anchors the song really. But it does show off the girls' vocals. They're singing in unison, and then we'll break off and go into the harmonies and the choruses, and I think it's just it shows off the girls' vocals really well.
It is one of the hardest songs to sing, pop-wise. I think vocally it is a hard song, and it's one of their harder ones. Most of their other songs I think you can sing along to and whatever, and you can sing along to Dancing Queen, but if you actually sit down and try to work out the vocals and the range of it, there is a lot going on there. They cover so much, and I think it's quite a difficult one to sing well.
In terms of vocal performance, this is where you really start to see the strengths between the girls' voices. And both of them, you know, had such huge vocal range, but I wouldn't have said that this is, at this point, the most successful use of their voices. Yet to come, there was still some stuff, perhaps Winner Takes It All, you know, where you just see them leap, you know, through the scales.
And when you get the chance, you are the dancing queen, young and sweet, only 17. Dancing queen, feel the beat from the tambourine.
Frida's voice was slightly lower and had a slightly more distinctive edge to it than Agnetha, but Agnetha was at the same time able to mimic other vocal styles much better and bring a more dramatic quality.
It's quite rare to find two vocalists in the same band that can cover roughly, I mean, between them both, they both could cover 2.5 octaves. I think Annie Fried was slightly lower in pitch than Agnetha, who could really do all that sort of high, glassy sounding stuff, but yet she could come down and do all the sort of thick, rich, sort of middle to low tones as well. And the fact that they had that balance between them, it just sort of left them this huge blank canvas where they could go anywhere, really. They weren't limited at all in terms of vocal capability. Benny and Bjorn knew that the girls could handle certain things vocally, but they throw a lot at them. I mean, vocally, their songs are not easy, and especially because there's such a range in them. They, you know, go all over the scale, and the guys, you know, come in with their little backing vocals every now and then, which helps out with the bass parts, but the girls have a really hard job, and they sing in full voice the entire time. They do not go into falsetto at all, which I find quite amazing. To have that much control, especially on sort of softer songs, it's quite amazing that they can still capture that feeling, but not, you know, taking anything away from their chest voice and making it really full.
I work all night, I work all day to pay the bills I have to pay. Hey, needs it, and still there never seems to be a single penny left for me. That's too bad. In my dreams, I have a plan. If I got me a wealthy man, I wouldn't have to work at all. I'd fool around and have
Money, Money, Money is really quite interesting, because what they've done is they've gone into their bag of musical tricks and they've taken out maybe a Hungarian type of scale, something a little bit further than mid-European. They've gone a little bit further east. And it's a very theatrical song, and it works beautifully. It's
amazing how much power and drama can be added to a song with barely any drums in the mix. Very, very stifled power chords, if audible at all. You know, they're just there as kind of token, you know, holding the whole thing together. All the drama within the song comes from the power chords and the vocal melodies. There's lots and lots of suspense, very much a hallmark of Abba, just keeping the whole thing holding back. And in the first verse, I think the song nearly stops before the chorus, you know, and then this chorus punches in. There's more than one hook as well, you know, you've got the and then you've got the hook in the money, money, money line as well, you know, and all sorts of intertwining counter melodies.
I think Money, Money works incredibly well as a song, and it works especially for us as a live song really well. It goes over extremely well, and I think it's the way the song builds through the verses and into the chorus, which is a killer chorus. It's great. But rhythmically, it's interesting in that the kick drum drives along, I suppose you could say the kick drum and the bass guitar driving along the rhythm in the verses, and then the snare comes in just at the right place where you want to hear it, and then boom, the whole thing takes off for the chorus. It's the construction of the song is excellent.
I love the melody, because it's like a perfect phrasing melody, you know, which has an answer. You know, I like that. It's got a really nice structured melody that builds, and that really does it for me on that one, definitely.
I think this shows that they are such, as we said before, a real theatrical band. I mean, Money, 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 again, it's such a dramatic song, and just the keyboards in it and the way it's been structured, it is very dramatic. It almost sounds like a crime thriller, the way they've written that song.
So I must leave, I'll have to go to Las Vegas or Monaco and win a fortune in a game. My life will never be the same. Monday, 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 must be Monday in the rich man's world. Monday, 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 always Sunday in the rich man's world.
You get the feeling that Abba are looking more towards the song as a live performance, more than just a created record. Perhaps it's the beginning of the next stage of Abba, where they're starting to think more in terms of stage production rather than studio production.
In the studio, they had the benefit of multi-tracking and using all kind of devices like vari-speed and stuff, and that was difficult to do live. And that was something that I'm sure that Benny and Bjorn had problems with when they did their concerts. So they had to then bring in backing vocalists and extra guitar players and percussionists and so forth, just to get that Abba sound happening.
It was a studio created sound. It was something that they'd painstakingly gone about to create, in a sense to recreate something of the kind of Beach Boys sound, the Beatles sound, which was, and particularly in both those cases, the bands became less live bands and more studio bands. And I think that was Abba's idea, was to create something close to a perfect pop sound. So kind of Benny and Bjorn, working with their producer Michael B. Tretow, consciously set out to create this slick sound, multi-layered sound, something like this Phil Spector wall of sound idea, and that was just almost impossible to recreate live. Certainly at the time. I think nowadays there'd be no problem using kind of tape back to add that depth of sound to the sound, but at the time you just almost couldn't do it.
No more carefree laughter, silence ever after.
Knowing Me, Knowing You is the sound of Abba beginning to grow up. Although it's based on American pop, which Bjorn and Benny were becoming increasingly intrigued by. And they were using those elements putting them into their own style and building it up.
There is nothing we can do, knowing me, knowing you. We just have to face it this time. We're through. Breaking up is never easy, I know, but I had to go. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can do.
It's slightly different from a lot of ABBA songs in the fact that it has an instrumental section in it that's played by the guitars, and possibly a synthesizer as well. That's not something they did quite a lot of. It was something they shied away from.
This really displays ABBA's ability to use many voices. You know, this is like a time where you get to hear the guys up at the fore as well, you know, and the scope within the four voices is really sort of used to its fullest potential here. And you get to hear, for the first time really, I think, on an ABBA album, the use of a whisper, like really, really in the forefront of the song, which kind of helps to depict the lyric of, you know, the sort of eeriness of an empty house when a relationship's closing.
Certainly Knowing Me, Knowing You is one of their finest songs ever, if not their finest, and songs like that and Slipping Through My Fingers, where they're perhaps being more candid, the lyrics are more candid about their own interrelationships, are very beautiful songs, and it's what ABBA do best. Knowing Me, Knowing You is probably, perhaps might stand up as their greatest song of all.
There is nothing we can do, knowing me, knowing you. We just have to face it this time. We're through. Breaking up is never easy, I know, but I had to go. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can do.
When Knowing Me, Knowing You was released, and he was asked, Björn was asked, is this a kind of an autobiographical song? And he just said, no, it's just an image that he had of someone walking through a house once a relationship was over, and it just struck him. And then years later, 23 years later, he was asked the same question, and then, you know, then he said, actually, it was a song about the breakup of his marriage. But neither of those answers was very accurate, because in fact, he wrote it 3 years before his marriage did break up. But it's odd that he finally did come to accept that he was writing confessional, autobiographical songs, and they were, I think, ABBA at their best when there was a kind of a real honesty and a depth to, you know, that underpinned very, very good pop music.
Knowing me, knowing you. There is nothing we can do.
They will come in full pout, all instruments, a lot of the time. And this song, SOS, and there's a couple of others as well, that they really pull back on the intro, and it sort of just builds and builds and builds, which they don't do that a lot, I find. They have breakdowns throughout the song, but this one, they start kind of soft and like sort of bring it in slowly and build and build. And then even the chorus, it sort of lifts it right up.
Breaking up is never easy, I know, but I had to go. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can do.
Arrival is probably the closest ABBA get to a perfect pop album. By now they're at their peak in terms of melodies, arrangements, knowing exactly what it is that will make an ABBA hit. It actually contains 3 of their biggest hits: Money, 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 Knowing Me, Knowing You, and Dancing Queen. And several of the other songs could have been contenders for pop hits.
You know, you can really tell that they were like experimenting with new sounds and that kind of thing, which really brought stuff forward. And I think that carried on for the subsequent albums after that as well. They sort of found a new genre of like, oh, hang on, electronic everything. It wasn't so stripped back and acoustic sounding and like, there are the keyboards, there's a guitar, and you could really distinguish the sounds, to going into this almost, I guess, a lot more disco-like. In a way, it just made it a lot more electronic, which, you know, was a new step for Abba, but they still managed to keep the same feel of their music.
And Name of the Game is really, yeah, a little bit of disco, a little bit of funk, a little bit of American black music being introduced into their sound there. Probably because they had the confidence now to be able to experiment in different areas musically.
The Name of the Game really saw a continuation of the disco feel that some of the tracks on the earlier albums had, such as Knowing Me, Knowing You and Dancing Queen. You know, they obviously realised at this point that that was a really successful market and that their songs were just great to dance to, you know, so a lot more of that on this album.
There's a lot you can teach me, so I wanna know, what's the name of the game? Does it mean anything to you? What's the name of the game? Can you feel it the way I do? Tell me please, 'cause I had to know I'm a bashful child, beginning to grow, and you make me talk.
It's, again, a lot more, I'd say, back to the SOS kind of feel to it. It's quite acoustic and sing-alongy, and it's quite chuggy the way it moves along. It's a kind of a slow feel to it, but it is very acoustic and stripped back again. It's not very electronic at all.
The Name of the Game is ABBA starting to look at emerging mega groups in America like Fleetwood Mac and the Eagles, and adapting a lot of those techniques to their own flawless production style and creating something slightly more grander than we'd been used to before, and maintaining the same ABBA, or the same distinctive ABBA style.
If you need me, let me know. Gonna be around. If you got no place to go when you're feeling down. If you're all alone, when the pretty birds have flown, honey, I'm still free. Take a chance on me. Gonna do my very best, and it ain't no lie. If you put me to the test, if you let me try.
I think Take a Chance on Me is one of several excellent pieces where the backing vocals are, or the counterpoint vocals are an important part of the success of the record.
Take a Chance on Me is a classic example of ABBA using words as rhythms. The whole song really is based around the rhythm of the words. Right from the beginning, right as the backing vocals build up, and you've got layer after layer of voices all just saying, take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. And that's your whole basis of the song. On top of that, Agnetha is kind of producing these breathy, sexy lines to go along with it. And it all just produces a monumental effect where the voices are the rhythm, and you can't quite tell that the instruments are almost irrelevant at times.
Bjorn wrote Take a Chance when he was jogging one day. The rhythm of him running along the footpath gave him that rhythm of take a chance, take a chance, take a chance. And so then that inspired him to use that, the vocal part of that song, as a kind of a rhythmic instrument, really. So you hear that in 3 parts of the song. They reintroduce that part later on and towards the end of the song as well. So it gives it an interesting kind of feel. It's a different approach to songwriting to use a vocal as a rhythmic instrument.
And it was another thing that they were starting to introduce, this rhythmical idea. So I think maybe they'd got a little bored in some ways with the melodic ideas and the choruses and everything. Well, what can we do to make this more interesting? And it sort of ties in with the fact that they were starting to use on the bottom end of their songs, the rhythm section of their song, something more interesting and more rhythmical. So it was, you know, filtering up through the song, so to speak, into the top end of the song. So this is wonderful because it's also a hook at the beginning of the song. Before the song's even started, you've got a hook and you've got people singing it. It's genius, really, in a way.
Take a Chance on Me was great live because obviously the band would sort of, I don't know whether they did take a tuning reference from anywhere, but they would just go straight into the beginning of the song as they did on the albums with an a cappella for like 15 seconds before any other instrumentation was heard. So quite a bold move and yeah, another amazing dynamic to Abba's capabilities on stage.
It's very intricate. It starts with one thing, and the vocals also kind of echo and propel the rhythm as well. You know, Benny and Bjorn have thought about the rhythm, thought how can we accentuate this with the vocal technique, and it's very, very cleverly done. It's a little bit music hall, but it has so much energy that it pumps along brilliantly anyway, and it's a very hard song not to love.
I'm nothing special, in fact, I'm a bit of a bore. If I tell a joke.
Well, Thank You for the Music is, you know, probably the first song that really, really they are saying here is a stage song. But they're also, they've decided to say, that by saying thank you for the music, I feel that they're saying thank you to their audience. I think that's what they're trying to say, which is fantastic, of course, because that's really what it's all about.
So I say thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing. Thanks for all the joy they're bringing. Who can live without it? I ask in all honesty. What would life be without a song or a dance? What are we? So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me.
Thank You for the Music is generally thought of as a sort of an anthem, a theme. People think of that, they think of Abba. If you're making a film or a book about Abba, you tend to call it Thank You for the Music. And it's been covered many times. It's very easy sort of sing-along, the kind of thing Westlife or soap stars would do on a TV show. As to whether it's their best song, no, not by a long chalk, I'd say. It's a little bit corny. It's a lot corny, actually. It's a little bit saccharine. It's dripping with syrup. And it doesn't have any sort of beat or pop sexiness, which their better tracks do, such as Know Me, Knowing You or Dancing Queen.
How did it all start? Who found that nothing can capture a heart like a melody can? Well, whoever it was, I'm glad. So I say thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing. Thanks for all the joy they're bringing. Who can live without it? I ask in all honesty. What would life be without a song or a dance? What are we? So I say thank you for the music, for giving it to me. I've been so lucky. I am the girl with golden hair.
Thank You for the Music was written as part of a mini musical called The Girl with the Golden Hair, which features Agnetha giving one of her stronger vocal performances.
But one of the things they've done is it sort of solo piano, so it's the solo voice, and then brings the band or orchestra in, and they have Rahl, so the thing slows down and it starts again, you know, and it's all the tricks that you would have on a stage. So it's performed, it's not just sung.
Almost very old school vaudeville sounding to it. It's very, you know, taking it right back in time. It sounds like a much older song than when they released it. I think that's why as well. It just makes it sound like a vaudeville cabaret kind of song that everyone can sing along to. It's got a very sing-songy chorus. It's very repetitive and just very fun and slow, and you know, you can see people waving their mugs of beer at you.
It opens with almost saloon kind of style of piano sound. You know, I don't know if, I'm sure that was intentional. You know, it's I get the picture that at any point Agnetha could burst into a Cockney accent. You know, it's almost got a real roll out the barrel kind of feel to it. And the chorus is just that. It's just a huge unison affair. It just begs to be sung along to, really. Just perfect, very clever.
It's a pretty cheesy song, but of course Abba can get away with that. They know exactly how to get away with that by now. Other bands would make it sound a lot more cheesy and it probably wouldn't have been a hit. It is of course now the inevitable climax to every Abba tribute band show.
It's seen to be kind of the end of the Abba era. When they wrote that song and released that song, it was getting towards the end of the era, and it's quite good, I guess. It's a retrospective, and we often use it for our final song when we finish a concert, because it starts off pretty well, just a piano and voice as kind of a ballad, and then the choruses pick up, and it's quite uplifting. It's a great song.
The chorus is such a perfect chorus that everybody must know that song and associate it with Abba. And I suppose they are actually saying, we are grateful that we have been given this talent, and this is our way of proclaiming it to the world. It's a fabulous song. It really is. It's never been that big a hit, of course, but that's the way things go, isn't it? It's a great song. And yes, it is their signature tune. Can you think of another one? I can't.
When I heard this, I thought they were going to break up. I thought this was them saying, you know, thank you very much, it's been fabulous, but good night, you know. But it wasn't. It was like, thanks for what's happened so far. We'd just like to just remind you, we're aware of that. That's the feeling I get from it.
Thank you for the music.
Gimme, Gimme, Gimme is probably ABBA's best disco track. It was quite calculated as such. You can tell from the arrangement of the song that they're being very deliberate about it. It's a very calculated build-up in terms of the arrangements, the instruments, and then the voice. Every part fits together. But actually, it doesn't come across that way. Most other bands, it would feel more contrived and constructed. But with ABBA, it just seems to flow naturally.
Gimme Gimme, I think, is another great example of a fantastic ABBA song, and really well produced in the studio, the whole bit. And it's a bit of a marriage of disco verses with the kind of the bass line in octaves and a great keyboard riff over the top of it, and then going into a rock song in the choruses. So it's just a great combination of the two spheres together.
Personally, Gimme 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 is one of the few ABBA songs that can just immediately reduce me to being covered in goosebumps, you know, another one that you just, if nobody's watching, dance to. Huge drama, lots of atmosphere with the sort of pipe and whistle kind of style motif they've got running through, and just, you know, they're pulling out all the stops and sort of building this into like a rhythmic masterpiece. You know, the tambourines in there within the first few bars, like building the tension. Just, yeah, brilliant disco song.
The lyrics are a bit strange, but, you know, that's sometimes ABBA's lyrics were. But they've got panpipes in there, and they've got New York disco bass in there as well, you know. ABBA were able to marry those styles, and it didn't seem strange from ABBA.
I think it's a lot raunchier, that song, I guess. I mean, talking about love and this and that, to go to Give Me a Man After Midnight, it's, you know, it's a very sexual song, completely. And for ABBA, that's, you know, they weren't about sex, really. Even though the girls were very sexy and they had that image, their songs weren't about sex. It was all about love and this and, you know, wow. But that one is kind of naughty.
ABBA turned to the disco market around about the time of Gimme Gimme Gimme, which was recently adopted by Madonna for the Hung Up hit, of course. And they did quite well. And this was around the time of the Voulez-Vous album, which was their disco album pretty much. Very good album, very well produced. They took elements of disco, but kept obviously their songwriting skills. They didn't just go for a beat. They kept their swooping choruses and great build-ups, great middle eights, great vocal overlayings, and it worked very well.
ABBA weren't cashing in on disco as such. When disco happened, as a pop band, ABBA couldn't fail to be aware of it and of its implications. Of course they were going to take the beats and the ideas from disco and translate them into their own songs. But those songs never stopped being ABBA songs. You couldn't confuse an ABBA song for any American disco track.
ABBA once said, after a review in a music paper accused them of being a disco act, that was the way, it was the soundtrack for that period, which was the second half of the 70s. And I suppose in many ways there's a truth in that. I don't know that they aimed at making a disco record, but that was the trend.
They liked the idea of disco, they liked the sound, they liked the Giorgio Moroder sound, and they tried to recreate it. The first time, their big disco thing was almost by chance when they set about writing Dancing Queen. It was a song about someone who liked dancing, and it was almost by chance that they realised they'd written are great and kind of an enduring classic, camp, gay, kitsch, iconic disco song. Once they'd written that, then that inspired them.
Summer Night City is another energetic, four-to-the-floor disco song. This time they've been influenced by the Bee Gees' vocals, because of course the Bee Gees had become huge at this time with Saturday Night Fever. And again, that influence carries through into ABBA, and ABBA turn it their own way.
There's a great Moog synthesizer line which goes through the chorus, and it's the bit that I listen to. It's like it's a bit like a solo. It's a bit like a keyboard solo, which is happening at the same time as the chorus is going on.
Okay, Summer Night City starts with what's called a pentatonic riff, which is used in sort of blues and jazz and rock and roll, basically. Quite a tough pentatonic riff, and then they do this weird thing where, you know, so they played a pentatonic riff, which is, you know, they use bits of that in a riff, and then they suddenly go into this sort of Eastern section musically and get away with it.
They were well up for trying to glue musical styles together. They did that in some songs to complete perfection, and I think rather than keeping one feel happening for a song, I think that was indicative of them experimenting with different rhythms for various songs, and that's how they came up with the formula of let's have this happening in the verse and this in the bridge, that in the chorus. I think that's where they got some great results, just through experimentation.
ABBA tended to get away with using a lot of minor chords, even though they were expressing something quite happy and major and up-tempo, you know. I think that's why they've been given longevity, because we don't see... They're not a cheesy pop band at all, you know. There's a lot of very clever musical things happening within the songs, you know. They're not sort of throwaway songs.
Come the verse, which is probably the best thing to illustrate that point with. Actually, it has basically the same chord progression as Gimme, actually. So again, you've got that rock influence with the minor thing going on, which is...
Also, the melody's quite not that a million miles away from Money, albeit a different song, you know. So if you think that the melody of Summer Night City in the verse is... It's just not a million miles away from...
ABBA did have a rather restless quest for perfection. A good example is Summer Night City, where they recorded various versions of that. They had a piano vocal intro, which was it was used in their live performances, but we didn't see that in the recorded performance. And I understand that ABBA did have that process in their songwriting, that they would take what they'd written into the studio and work at it and work up different versions of a song, so that ultimately the version they committed to tape would be exactly what they wanted.
A lot of people have a problem with Summer Night City. I think they think it's kind of it's one of their more indulgent tracks. It's trying to do too many things, but a lot of people think it's overdone, it's overproduced. They're putting too much into it, but you know, it's the odd forgivable indulgence.
Chiquitita, tell me what's wrong. You're enchained by your own sorrow. No hope for tomorrow. How I hate to see you like this.
I think this is a particularly beautiful song, and it has a particularly lovely introduction actually because it features a guitar. And it's just basically a very simple guitar line which starts it off, which I think is particularly lovely, which goes.
Chiquitita, it's another song that you know is a power ballad, I guess is the best way to explain it, and just from a kind of a flamenco sounding guitar right at the very start, just building to a great big payoff chorus, which is I think from a musical point of view it's a really strong song, and it's kind of gets to kind of massive oompa status right by the end of the song. It's another song which works really well for us live too. It's great.
Chiquitita is a mixture of soft Latin rock and classical influences blended together with some subtler R&B influences. By now, Abba are getting quite sophisticated at what they do, and you can hear different strains of different styles running underneath, because they're confident that their own style will pervade through it, and therefore their own distinctive character will come out, doesn't matter what other style they pick up on.
I think it's also nice, I mean, because obviously the nice harmonies are going up in thirds and what have you. But in the verses, the piano and the guitar complement each other very well with a kind of arpeggiated movement. And the piano's got little flourishes.
Again, are very sparse and drawn out, and it's all very whispery and like it's like she's having a conversation with this Chiquitita, whoever that may be. But it's quite conversational, that one, which I like. Giving advice from the Abba girls.
Chiquitita is a really good example of how, although Abba have a sound, you know, they can easily sort of diversify and call upon other musical references. Musically, there were 4 huge brains there at work with Abba, and I think the use of different styles of music helped to keep things, you know, really sort of dynamic and interesting for the whole situation, and for the audiences as well, you know. Formulaic as they were, they still managed to keep things very sort of diverse and hilly.
Chiquitita, you and I know.
but it is very carnival-like. It's very, not swing, but the way they do the chorus, it's very like bum, 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 and you can really kind of hear, I guess I could see it in a circus, which is kind of strange, but it's like sort of a, you know, dusky little, you know, European carnival going on.
Like a lot of their stuff, bottom line, it's got a killer chorus. You know, just one of those choruses that everybody knows, it's so memorable, and it, which is obviously one massive strength to success. That ultimately people, mass market will buy your records if they're catchy enough for them to remember, and this is just one of those great melodies.
Voulez-Vous is another Bee Gees influenced song, which again has become quite a disco favourite, particularly in retrospect.
I think Voulez-Vous was probably one of the more formulaic ABBA songs. You know, they really knew that this huge punch-in disco, you know, gimme, 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 money, money, knowing me, knowing you, repetition, you know, Voulez-Vous, you know, it's something that can easily be picked up to sing and, you know, dance to at the same time, and, you know, all the dramatic aspects of the, you know, the successful disco tunes that they've done so far were all present within this song.
But they've done it in a way that is very 80s and very like, there's lots of, the way they sing it, it's almost, it's really smooth, and it's like they hold that note, and there's a key change under it in the chorus, which goes up in the da na 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 na, like it's just very 80s disco, and like late 70s 80s disco. And I think again they've brought the guitars back though over the electronic keyboards, and the electronic, like the vocals are even a little bit more electronic in that song, which they hadn't really done before.
We've done it all before, and now we're back to get some more. You know what I mean. Voulez-vous? Take it now, leave it. Now it's all we get. Nothing promised, no revenge. Voulez-vous? Ain't no big decision. You know what to do. Life is just a
I think in many regards they were giving people what people really wanted all along, you know, and just great songs, really sing-alongable choruses, and great rhythms to dance to as well.
I don't want to talk.
The Winner Takes It All actually revitalised ABBA's career at the start of the 80s. There's no doubt that what had come so intuitively to them in the 70s was now taking more effort to sound natural and vivacious.
This is one of the ones where they didn't sit down on a Monday morning and say, it's Monday 10 o'clock, let's write a song. The song had to be written because, you know, something was happening in their life. Now, that doesn't mean that, you know, if Benny was the person that wrote most of this, that Bjorn wasn't involved. But I think whoever wrote the main part of this song, you can tell in many ways that it's one conscious thought.
For all intents and purposes, a ballad, but a power ballad, which is driven along by a great drum and bass line when the song picks up. And the lyrical content, which is a chronicle of the divorce that Agnetha and Bjorn went through, I think is it's kind of astonishing to make a hit about something that so heartrending.
There's a tendency for people to start reading into ABBA lyrics at around this time. The reasons why they broke up and the heartbreak and everything else. Perhaps this song you can.
I think the irony in it is that he again wrote this song. I'm not sure if it was to express probably the common feelings he had between them, but certainly when it's interpreted by Agnetha, it has this very sort of morose and easily identifiable kind of melancholy quality, which again is reflected in the music very much.
The winner takes it all, the loser standing small beside the victory. That's her destiny.
The thing for me is in the verses, the piano actually has got a counterpoint, not counterpoint, but a rhythm that is set against the rhythm of the song, which is all offbeats. So if you imagine the pulse of the song just sort of being 2, 3, 4, you know, which is a fairly standard kind of thing, but over that there's this kind of counterpoint rhythm that juxtaposes the other one. Same bit again, yeah? Which is this. Which really drives it on, because rather than just being a 4/4 thing that we can all hear, suddenly you've got this more complicated thing that, you know, really bounces off each other, and I think that moves it on. Whereas it's a ballad, but it has a real movement to it.
It's one of the songs I think that gave them such credibility as a band. It took them from being, you know, yeah, ABBA are fantastic, but it took them into the stratosphere, because it was like, well, here you go. This is deep now. This is deep. Here's this band that have been, you know, pure pop, disco, theatre, music hall, mid-European, bit Spanish, and suddenly they're writing deep, strong, emotional songs.
I would say that this particular song is where the girls are at their definite best. I think the myth that ABBA, between the girls, had about 2.5 octaves each. I think they probably had a little bit more, because I'm supposed to have 2.5 octaves and I can't sing along to this. You know, I can do all the low stuff, but then we shoot up there into the, and it's like, you know, way into falsetto. That's an incredible vocal achievement, in my opinion.
She does, I must say, Agnetha, good job on the vocals in this one. It's so powerful, and she sings it really beautifully. It's very clean. And I think the opening line, like, it's, you know, this dramatic build up, and then it just stops. And she starts singing over nothing, which I think is, again, very dramatic and very theatrical. You could see it on stage.
Building me a home, thinking I'd be strong there, but I was a fool, laying by the rules. The gods make wrong with eyes, their minds as cold as ice, and someone way down here loses someone dear. The winner takes it all.
It's certainly one of the better songs from their later era. It's very well constructed. The grandiose piano introduction, the dramatic vocals that Agnetha sings, and the combination of the two and the production techniques are all well practiced, well versed.
We find it very hard to do it justice in a live sense, because it's the production that's the treatment they've given it in the studio is very hard to emulate on stage. So, but that kind of puts it in a bit of a special place for me. I think it's possibly, you could nearly argue, or I could nearly say it's one of my favourite ABBA songs.
This song probably takes them as far as they can go without really becoming over-sophisticated and starting to lose the point, really, of what a pop band is supposed to be about.
I was sick and tired of everything when I called you last night from Glasgow. All I do is eat and sleep and sing, wishing every show was the last show. So imagine I was glad to hear you coming. Suddenly I feel alright, and suddenly it's coming, and it's gonna be so different when I'm on the stage tonight. Tonight the super trooper lights are gonna find me shining like the sun, smiling, having fun, feeling like a number one.
Well, Super Trooper is, when you're on stage, they don't use them so much nowadays, but Super Trooper is the big spotlight that comes down from the very back of a theatre and, you know, puts a big circle round the main act.
So the opening line, Super Trooper lights are going to find me, really is about the band trying to avoid the spotlight. Almost now, for the first time in their career, they're looking to get out of the spotlight rather than into it. There's a certain weariness about it. Doesn't stop it from being a very fine song, however, very well constructed. And they almost use the sort of world-weary edge to their own advantage.
It's got some really interesting rhythm in there, which is brought about by a synth bass, which is underlying throughout the whole track. And I don't know what instrument it was played on. I think it might have been a Jupiter 8 synth, but I think it's it creates a staple for the song.
Everything will be so different when I'm on the stage tonight. Tonight the super trooper lights are gonna find me shining like the sun, smiling, having fun, feeling like a number one. Tonight the super trooper beams are gonna blind me, but I won't feel through like I always do. For somewhere in the crowd there's you.
The vocals in it are great because they kind of, like the undertones of the that the guys do, it takes over from instruments as well. And I think that just is a really new line in it because, you know, it brings it back to that a cappella thing when lots of bands do that these days where they sing every instrument. Abba started doing it in that song.
Yeah, the chorus, I mean, basically with the male vocals going as well is I mean, this is an approximated sound of what's on the record, but it's just quite simple, really. You know, it's quite a simple chordal structure. It's just 3 chords. That's it, you know. But it's the guitar for me in the verse that's got the lovely.
It's following the line.
Yeah, it's got a really nice kind of pattern to it. Do you want to just do it? Yeah.
3, 4.
Which is lovely, you know, really melodic kind of chordal writing for the guitar. The pat's lovely, arpeggiated.
The thing about Super Trooper as a song that's quite interesting, here once again to hark back to the ABBA songbook, you know, here is another thing. ABBA lesson number 1. Sad verse, happy chorus. Makes a big hit.
You certainly don't get downhearted listening to it necessarily. You don't feel a weariness listening to it. You don't feel, oh, here comes another ABBA song. They've still got that ability to pull you in. It's just that you can tell that perhaps for the first time they are beginning to admit to themselves that their life as a pop group is not going to go on forever, and that the attention they've been getting, the spotlight that the Super Trooper light has put them under, is something they're getting a bit weary of.
I think this is really, as much as ABBA loved what they were doing. You know, they were finding it very, very hard working with each other, and the whole touring thing. You know, I think Agnetha was struggling more and more with flying, and you know, becoming sort of, I don't know. It talks about being on stage a lot, and then once the music gets to them, you know, things start being all right again. You know, and feeling okay. But yeah, this is definitely sort of a nod to what's to come in terms of Abba's breakup, I think.
I was at a party and this fella said to me, something bad is happening, I'm sure you do agree. People care for nothing, no respect for human rights. Evil times are coming, we are in for darker nights. I said, who are you to talk about impending doom? He got kind of weary as he looked around the room.
On and On and On is one of their most relatively most rocking tracks. They do get down and get on it a little bit with this one. It does have more vim and vigour perhaps than their more precise and polite ballads. It still wouldn't get on the bill at Donington. It's not a monster of rock track by any stretch of the imagination, but at least they're kind of getting a few feet tapping and working it a bit.
There's two drummers in this song, and a thumping bass line, and some pretty heavy-duty guitar work as well. So I think it's them trying to say that they're not just writing boppy songs, poppy songs, nor just ballads. They had a rock and roll side to them as well.
The Super Trooper album was largely written in Barbados by Bjorn and Benny. Going away to write an album had worked for them earlier. This time they seemed to be running a little thin on ideas. The production was also a bit muted, which meant that when they were not actually on sparkling form, it could slip quite easily into a rather bland formula.
Yeah, the Super Trooper album, Winner Takes All and Super Trooper, two enormous hits off it. They were at their zenith at this point, really. They sort of could do no wrong. It was hit after hit. But deservedly so, because, you know, they put a lot of hard work into it.
I suppose you have to ask that a band that could communicate with each other that well musically clearly was now unable to communicate with each other outside the confines of music.
And having gotten through the editorial, no doubt I must have frowned. I must have made my desk around 9:15, with letters to be read and heaps of papers waiting to be signed. I must have gone to lunch at 12:30 or so, the usual place, the usual bunch.
The Day Before You Came is built on banks of electronic instruments that provide a strong atmosphere for Frida's vocals, but her vocals are mixed into the distance somehow in the song, and they give it a rather kind of cold, objective feeling, almost as if she's looking down on the rest of us. In fact, looking down on the rest of Abba, I suspect.
This is hugely, hugely minor, and it's a very sort of meandering song that doesn't seem to really sort of ever punch or take off. You know, considering it was a single, it was sort of very, very minor and very downbeat, and obviously probably very true of what was happening to them all at the time. But it's, yeah, it's quite sad lyrically, really, and just sort of, it almost sounds like a diary, like a journal of what's happening at the time.
Oh yes, I'm sure my life was well within its usual frame. The day before you came.
The song has a theatrical element in the sense that by now Bjorn and Benny were increasingly thinking of stage productions when writing their music. I think they'd already knew this was going to be the next stage after Abba had finished, and I think by now they could see the end was in sight, and they were already looking beyond as to what was going to come next.
They're going to slip at some point from the zeniths of musical genius. There's got to be a few breathers. So, but I don't think they were cracking up. I think things were maybe winding down. It's still very strong material, if you consider it's at the end of their career, and they're still coming up, as I've said, with consistently high standard material. It's wonderful, really.
School bag in hand, she leaves home in the early morning, waving goodbye with an absent-minded smile. I watch her go.
As the 70s moved on, Abba got more and more confident and more successful, obviously, and the more successful they got, the more confident they got. But by the sort of the 80s, they were doing more experimental stuff. The Visitors album was quite ambitious for them and not as commercial as their previous works. So they were doing more experimental stuff on some of this footage we see here by their standards. It doesn't, it's not experimental by avant-garde standards, but it's experimental by pop standards. And they moved past disco. They were doing quite Baroque ballads again now.
Slipping through my fingers all the time, I try to capture every minute, the feeling in it. Slipping through my fingers all the time, do I really see what's in her mind? Each time I think I'm close to know it, she keeps on growing, slipping through my fingers all the time.
At their best, they had the pop songs, which were about the kind of what was happening in their lives, and I think that's when ABBA were at their best. And now I think they're enduring songs. They're songs about, despair, about marriages ending, and about, I think, Slipping Through My Fingers is one of their best songs, because it's from the heart. It's a confessional song about Björn saying he's worried about, he's given too much energy to his work and too little to his, family, and then he's seeing his children grow up, and it's a really heartbreaking song.
It just became very hard for them to write happy love songs, and it did reflect that they were growing up to a certain extent, or had grown up, and that the dream was over. They couldn't do it anymore because it wouldn't be realistic. They just had to put an end to it, which of course is what they did.
You can hear elements of this song in the Police's album Synchronicity, which would go on to be a mammoth album, particularly in America. So there was no doubt that by now ABBA were influencing all sorts of bands around them. Rock bands as well were taking many of the ideas that ABBA had pioneered and were now incorporating them into rock music. That gave another dimension for ABBA, one that ABBA themselves couldn't follow up, but other bands certainly could.
I don't think it is a fitting swan song for ABBA. I think I kind of see, and I know it's not their last song, but or last songs, Thank You for the Music and One of Us, as being how I kind of remember ABBA finishing off and squaring away an amazing period in pop music.
I think this was not just based on their relationship, I think it's their relationship with the media as well. They just felt totally in the spotlight and totally that their whole life was under the microscope. and no matter what they did, they couldn't escape.
It's certainly one that it definitely gives me the impression that this is, you know, a swan song. It's sort of really like a chapter closing, really, and again just fits with the complete mood of the album. You know, I suppose they couldn't help the direction that things were going, and you know, I think it's a very sort of, again, very honest kind of representation.
Some of the melodies on the Visitors album have an almost operatic quality, which certainly made the girls work harder and brought something new out in them. They could sing for themselves now, while Bjorn and Benny looked at other ways of writing songs and what else they could bring to their own songwriting.
I think the Visitors are a fantastic end to the career. One of us is lying. When all is said and done. Once again, hugely successful. I mean, they could have gone on and on and on, but clearly it was, you know, time to call it a day, and they did the most sensible thing that any band of that stature can do, which is when they've decided it. Maybe they made a pact at the beginning. You know, when we decide we don't want to do this anymore, we don't do it anymore, and that means we don't do it anymore.
It was time to finish now. I think everything had been said and done with them, professionally and personally, and I think it was time just to stop. You could see that no one was happy in the band. No one wanted to be there, but they knew they were onto a winning thing, so they kept going, and I think it was just a stretch.
It was part of our history, our pop history. If they come back, it would never be the same. And I wouldn't want them to come back, really, you know. So I think it was a fitting end, and they bowed out very gracefully.
You always have ambitions, but we are very thankful for those 10 years. But you still have ambition to reach more higher up.
I think it's a matter also of maybe changing direction a little. I mean, when we've had the success we've had with Abba for such a long time, I feel an eagerness to do something else. I mean, not on my own, but sort of doing something else within the frames of music.
Talent such as this, you know, it can't really be ignored. You know, I think it was just something that shocked people, and particularly the image of the band as well. They weren't afraid to dress up, and it was just at a time when everybody loved to dress up, and the girls were stunning, you know, and there was the contrast between the colouring of the girls as well, and it was just, there was something for everybody, really.
Let's say that for the moment, Abba have a break.
Yes.
Bjorn and Benny writes on a musical together with Tim Rice.
Yes.
And Frida's working for herself, and I'm working for myself.
And you too, yes.
So we never know what will come in the future.
I've been cheated by you since I drove away. So I made up my mind, it must come to an end.
A typical ABBA song consisted of a strong beat, a contagious melody, intense backing instruments, usually keyboards with perhaps acoustic guitars, layered very thickly, a very multi-layered approach to it. And then finally adding those voices on top, which was the coup de grace, really. It was the special ABBA ingredient.
Mamma mia, does it show again? My heart, just how much I missed you. There's nothing broken hearted, blue since the day we parted. Why did I ever let you go? Mamma mia, now I really know. My, I could never let you go.
I think ABBA's arrangements are templates, really, for other pop artists. You know, like if you say in the recording studio, we want a sort of George Harrison, musicians, arrangers, producers know what you mean. If you say we want an ABBA, they know what you mean. So that therefore means that ABBA had created a template, a sound, a branding, a style of arrangement that had become an ABBA.
I think they were cool in that they stuck to their guns and they did what they did in their own way, and I think that's why people can, one of the many reasons why people can appreciate ABBA's music today, simply because they're great songs, incredibly well performed and produced. So that's the cool side, I think, of ABBA, the legacy they've left.
Walking through an empty house, tears in my eyes. Here is where the story ends. This is goodbye. Knowing me, knowing you. There is nothing we can do. Knowing me, knowing you. We just have to face it this time. We through. We really breaking up is never easy. I know, but I had to go. Knowing me, knowing you, it's the best I can do.
They had completely their own sound. Lots and lots of drama, lots of suspense, and where perhaps sometimes keyboards would normally be used to build and layer the wall of sound that's often present, they would use voices as well, just layer upon layer upon layer of unison voice or harmony vocal, and that really was the one of the biggest trademarks of ABBA.
Chiquitita, you and I know how the harmonies come and they go and the stars they're leaving. You will be dancing once again and the pain will end. You will have no time for breathing. Chiquitita, you and I cry, but the sun is still in the sky and shining above you. Let me hear you sing once more like you did before. Sing a new song, Chiquitita.
ABBA material is meant to last, you know. I'm sure they weren't writing the songs thinking, well, next week nobody will like this anymore and nobody will play it anymore. Well, I'm sure each song of theirs was a baby. It was something that they cherished, you know, that they wanted. So I think, having said that though, by the fact that they kept the middle ground, meant that they would have the biggest amount of audience humanly possible. They'd have people who were not musicians who loved what they did, and they'd have musicians who loved what they did.
And someone way down here loses someone dear. The winner takes it all. The loser has to fall. It's simple and it's plain. Why should I complain? But tell me, does she kiss?
It was so accessible, I think, and because it was done with such a big smile on their face, everyone related to it straight away. And whether people love ABBA or hate it, everyone knows ABBA songs. No one is free from it. I don't think you could ask anyone and they wouldn't know who ABBA were, because they had such an impact on the 70s and 80s, and even now. Without them, the pop music we have now would not exist.
So lucky, I am the girl with golden hair. I wanna sing it out to everybody. What a joy, what a life, what a chance. Thank you for the music, the songs I'm singing. Thanks for all the joy they're bringing. Who can live without it?
There's nothing about Abba that pretends to be better than they actually were. At their best, Abba really were as good as their songs, and their songs are absolutely brilliant. And that's perhaps why they've lasted for so long and will continue to last.